Hi everybody, I'm Greg Fishel. Welcome to the bonus weather video for today, number 3 for the week. And I've entitled it Snow Climatology, if you get my drift. And if the perception on the part of you old timers like me is that it's a downhill trend, you will see that the numbers bear out your perception. It is indeed true. Whether or not the trend continues or not, your guess is as good as mine, but it certainly has been downward over the last half a century, if not a little bit more than that. All right, so let's go on ahead here. And this is a moving 30-year average of annual snowfall. So in other words, the first point there on the left side of the graph is the average annual snowfall from the period 1945 to 1974, and then it keeps increasing by 1 year at a time. So the next one will be 46 to 75. The reason you don't see that label there is that with the font size I selected, it doesn't fit, okay? But all those years are in there from 45 to 74, from 95 to 2024. And you can see that initially, from the mid-40s up to the period mid-50s to mid-80s, it actually increased a little bit. But since that time, it's been on a pretty steady decline. And you do see a little bit of oscillations in there, like in other words, a few 30-year averages are below, a few 30 averages are high above the line, but basically the trend is definitely downward. Then I thought it might be fun to look at the probabilities of the 30-year average of annual snowfall exceeding 1 inch, okay? So, we're supposed to average more than that, so you would hope that this number is pretty high. But basically, again, from the mid-50s to the mid-80s, we were up a little bit over 90%, and we have now dropped to around just slightly over 70%, so about a 20% decline. And, before the last 2 years, and this, again, is a 30-year average, it's not individual years, you can see that there was a little bit of an uptick there toward the end, just slightly. So is that the beginning of an upward cycle? Again, your guess is as good as mine. I don't have a crystal ball that's that good. Now, the probability over 4 inches, and I kept the y-axis the same because what Excel does is if your range of percentages from high to low gets smaller, then it exaggerates the differences from one period to the next as the range gets smaller and smaller. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be truthful and objective about this. So the probability of greater than or equal to 4 inches actually increased from the mid-40s to the mid-70s up to over 70%, again, maybe from the late 50s to the late 80s, and then it has been on a steady decline to its current level around 40%. Now let's move on to 8 inches. And again, the numbers get smaller with each threshold increase, as you might expect. But again, from the late 50s to late 80s, and maybe even you can make the argument from like 1960 to 1990, it was about 45% or up in that range, and now it's under 30% during the current 30-year average. And finally, the chance of a seasonal snowfall total being more than a foot was mid-50s to mid-80s, up about 25, 26%, and it's now down to about 10%. So there's been a significant drop-off in each one of these categories, as well as the 30-year average. But again, if you're looking at climatic trends, you have to do at least 30 years. Anything shy of that, you're going to get noise in your data, and you could look at that graph and say, oh, look, the last 3 years or the last 10 years have been up, so, and you can't do that. Climate changes on a much longer time scale than the weather does. And so you have to really broaden the time scale as a result of that. And there are some cycles that are even longer than 30 years, well longer than 30 years. So again, this is not saying that this is going to continue, but certainly I can say with confidence over the period of time that we're looking at that there has been a steady decline in all of these categories and thresholds. All right, that is bonus weather video number 3 for this week. Hope you found that interesting. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Friday evening, an even better weekend. And again, I'll update you both Saturday and Sunday in some manner about next week's weather, and we'll see what happens. So you all take care, folks. We'll talk to you soon. See you later.